Okay, I think we're live. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Ten2Two social media webinar. It's the first time we've done this online, so we normally deliver this in person. But what we're hoping is that being able to doing it online means we'll be able to reach far more people because it's not geography based. So we're delighted to have with us John O'Sullivan, who's the chair of Ten2Two. He's worked in the digital space for over 20 years now, so he's an absolute expert in this area. Hi, John.
Hiya. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're well. As Deborah said, I have had a varied career, but was involved very early days in internet, in e-commerce, in all sorts of different businesses, right up until present time. So looking forward to speaking to you this morning.
Brilliant, thank you. So we only have around an hour this morning, and there's an awful lot to cover. So we're going to try and answer some questions as we go through. But if your question doesn't get answered, we'll create a summary sheet afterwards, and that will be emailed out to all participants. So don't worry if your question doesn't get answered as we go through. So as I've said, John, you know, this is a massive area. Social media is just a huge area. What are you planning on covering this morning?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we originally put the 2-hour presentation together, we went out and spoke to a number of sort of references and said, what do you think we should include? And everyone said, what you think you're going to do social media in 2 hours. And so to try and do it in an hour is very compressed, but we're going to focus on a couple of things. We're going to focus on really giving a bit of context around how social media has sort of bled into business now, how social media can benefit people's career development and their job hunting. And it's all about how you manage your digital personality online when you don't necessarily have total control of it in terms of, you know, what people are thinking. It's very different face to face and, for example, a paper CV. So we'll talk a little bit about that and give a few hints and tips as we go through. And as Deborah said, everyone, we will do a summary sheet and make the webinar available. And then we're also planning a follow-up that may go into a couple of points in a bit more detail based on the questions we get today.
Sure, brilliant. Okay, so so as we're going through your presentation, what should people be thinking about?
So they should be thinking about a couple of things. I think what we will have joining us today is, you know, there are some of you there that are going to be fairly fluent in their social media usage. They're going to be, whether that's social media from a personal point of view with your family and friends, or whether it's social media on from a more of a business perspective, whether you have been involved in businesses with social media. But just start to have a think about how you are using social media personally, what you may need to learn more of, you may need to practice a little bit more, just try and pick up a couple of personal things as you go through. And I think the overriding thing that you should be thinking about is just trying to understand the importance of this to them and their career going forward from today.
Sure. Okay, that's brilliant. So should we crack on, get started?
Yeah, let's do that. What I'll do now is share my screen, so bear with me for a second, and then I have about 40 minutes of presentation to run through, and it'll go at a fairly fast pace, and as I say, it will be recorded, and then Deborah and I will have a sort of quick recap at the end and really look at any questions that come in, see if there's any clarification required. But we'll try and get through as much as we can now. So let me just share my screen. Deborah, let me know when you can see that on.
Yeah, I can see that.
Perfect. Okay, so once again, good morning, everybody. As I said there, we're really looking at social media from a professional perspective about you as a professional in the workplace or rejoining the workplace, and not just enhancing your job hunting, but also enhancing your career as a whole. What we're going to really cover is a couple of things. So one is really social media in a business context, as I said a couple of minutes ago. The social media was very much a personal thing when it first started, like Facebook, about your friends at college, your friends at home, your family. But we'll really talk about how social media has really bled into the business environment and how important it is in business right now. But then also to think about how social media concepts and structures are used in the workplace now. And, you know, hopefully, if it's not something you're doing right now, It's something that you should be thinking about looking out for, either in your current workplace or in your future workplace in a year or two to come. We'll talk about social media and its impact on your career and how you can enhance your career. And what we will do within this is focus on LinkedIn. It is the most important social media platform in business. So we will, after we've gone through an initial stage, we'll zoom in on that. We won't make you a social media star in an hour. Hopefully we'll give you enough tips to get you going and to do more at whatever stage of your knowledge right now. So I just thought I'd start off here. One of the things we've run this session for about 4 or 5 years now. Actually, at Ten2Two, we've done multiple workshops, and something that comes up every time, even up to recent months, is sometimes when people think about trying to re-establish their professional presence on social media and build that up, is they don't know where to start. And I think the key thing to think about here is you just need to start somewhere. It is a very much an evolutionary thing. It's something you can change really quickly. If you do something on your LinkedIn profile or something that you don't like, you can change it immediately. You will see what other people are doing and you'll change what you're doing and you'll pick up other people's practices. So the key thing is just to set yourself a little plan on how you're going to improve and enhance your presence, and then just chip away at it bit by bit. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to pick a starting point and go on from there. And it's very much a vocational thing. It's very much about how do you learn as you go along. It's no point in buying a book to learn about these things. It's very much an experimental thing. It's very, if people out there have a vocational learning method, it's probably better than an academic learning method, but it's very much about learning by doing. So experience of as you go along. And then the final one is just really, you have to think of social media as being an extension of you, an extension of what you do. So don't try and be somebody different. You don't have to behave differently. If you're a friendly person, be friendly. If you're straightforward, be straightforward. Don't try and create an artificial sort of artifice of who you might be on social media, and don't get swayed by what other people are doing. Just stick to you, be very personal about what you're doing, and work at it at a level that you are very comfortable with.
John, we just had a question saying, will we make the slides available to participants?
Yeah, we can do.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's no problem at all. So some of you may remember this photograph that was taken at the Oscars in 2014. So that's 6 years ago now. That seems like a really long time ago. And Ellen DeGeneres took her Samsung phone into the audience, and Bradley Cooper took this famous selfie. And the reason why it became very famous, apart from the fact that you've got Jennifer Lawrence and Brad Pitt, as a selfie, it's probably one of the most A-list expensive selfies you could ever take. But what happened was that it was put onto Twitter mid-event at the Oscars, and it was forwarded more than 2 million times by the time the ceremony was finished. And then forwarded 3 million times within a couple of days of that. So this was really one of the first real landmarks in social media exposure on Twitter. Everyone had Facebook, but as Twitter is more of a sort of broadcast medium as such, you have people who have many millions of followers. Then people realise that you can put a picture on social media and it can be forwarded and it could be liked, and all of a sudden just gets a huge amount of coverage. And this has now entered the Time magazine's top 100 photographs of all time because of the impact it had on the internet. And of course, what we have now, 6 years on, is the social media is such an intrinsic part of our lives. If you have kids at school, if you have a hobby or an interest and you're part of a club, the use of WhatsApp, Facebook, to organise ourselves and to be and to be able to do things on the fly, last minute if necessary, change the arrangements. For some of us, it's quite frustrating when we know that many people now just don't make arrangements anymore. Everything's changed up until the last minute, but that's how it's done. And just some of those stats there, 1,000 photographs uploaded to Instagram per second, and 79,000 YouTube videos watched every second. You know, YouTube has become a sort of a dictionary or search engine. It's the second most popular search engine, and many people, if they want to know how to do something now, whereas before you might go and try and find a user manual, you might go and try and find some instructions, you just go onto YouTube and try and find a video. And you know, personally, I play guitar, I sail. There's a few things that I do, and for quite a long time, I used to just go and look at websites. Now I just use YouTube, and what the back end of that is that lots of organisations have realised that actually this is a place to put our instruction videos, our user manuals. We put it on YouTube. We'll do it in a very simple way, in a very easy way. So that whole use of personal social media has moved into business quite considerably. And from this webinar's perspective, if you are in the workplace, then you should start thinking about how your organisation and organisations around you are starting to use social media platforms and structures to promote their business, to connect with other organisations, and the whole structure of, you know, discussion feeds, of chat rooms, of the WhatsApp type messaging is permeating all the way through businesses on a monthly basis at the moment. So whilst social media seems very much a consumer thing, it's being adopted all the time to make businesses more agile, more dynamic, and fast moving. I thought I would just very quickly for 2 minutes just pick on Instagram, because it's, you know, we're seeing the rise of all sorts of different social media platforms over the past few years, but Instagram has been the one that really has sort of captured the business community. You'll see a couple of stats here. 65% of Instagram views feature a product, and you know, there are lots of people like YouTubers and people who've moved into Instagram who are, you know, doing product promotions, being product and brand ambassadors, and actually the number of products now that are bought from an Instagram picture is quite incredible. So about 6 months ago, at least 30% of Instagram users have purchased a product they first saw on Instagram. So it's a promotional tool for an organization. Yeah, your website is great. Yeah, catalog, you might still do a catalog if you're a clothing business. But actually, Instagram is incredibly important. The hospitality industry, Instagram, if you don't have an Instagram page now and you're not regularly promoting on Instagram, it's incredible. You know, we found at Ten2Two, the number of people who contact us through Facebook as a way of talking to us rather than emailing or messages in a different way goes up every month. And I thought I'd also just mention two other things. Ariana Grande has got 200 million followers on Instagram. She doesn't pay anything for that. So whatever she wants to say, whatever platform she wants to say for her music, for her interests, she probably has a team looking after this for her, but she also does Instagram posts herself, and she knows that at any one time that there's a high percentage of that 200 million people will see what she's posting, costing nothing. So it's quite an incredible shift. And if anybody now is looking at the sort of supermodels and fashion models, you know, one of the reasons why they're booked now is of their Instagram following, because when they go on a shoot, they take pictures of the shoot, they post their pictures, the messages, they talk about the brand, they keep the clothes sometimes, depending on who their model is. And so when you are booked for a shoot as a fashion model, part of your profile is how many Instagram followers do you have? And that never existed before. So just the rise of Instagram, really the last 2 years, it's become a major platform that the business community has attached itself to it so incredibly. And one business I picked out was a person called Grace Beverley, who was a student at Oxford and very much got into fitness. I was doing fitness videos. I started doing workout bands and fitness bands, you know, a small range of products. She had a million followers on Instagram, 500,000 on YouTube, 81,000 on Twitter. And one of the things she did was she created this brand called Tala, and it was to offer some sustainable, low-cost, very flattering products from somebody who trains themselves. So not a big brand, but somebody who thinks actually it needs to be made of recyclable material, you know, it needs to be affordable, it needs to be looking very cool. And when she launched it, she had a massive influx of orders on her first day, none of which she could fulfill. So her back office system that she put in place with a partner just didn't work. Nobody got their orders. She went online and said, sorry guys, that wasn't very good. We're going to have another go at it. Just bear with me for a few days. A week or two later, right, our orders are going out. It all went wrong again. And she said, oh, that's a shame, but hang on in there. Your product's with you soon. Now, if that was an ordinary business, then people would just cancel their orders and you only get a first opportunity to launch a brand. But because she built up such a strong, loyal community of followers, they were happy to give her the benefit of the doubt. There was her messages around in Grace Fit and Itala was, and I knew this because my daughter was one of those people who wasn't getting her order fulfilled, was just, we're really sorry to hear it, Grace. Just hang on in there. We're behind you. So she maintained it. She got through all those problems and she kept that going. So you'll see there how social media has become much more, has made brands become much more personal, create much more of a community and a relationship with individuals. But if we go that into how we work within organizations, some of you may have used one of these platforms that are being used in organizations now. And up until even 18 months ago, I think the predominant way of communicating within organizations was email. You would open up your inbox in the morning and realize that you've still got 300 emails from the day before that you've not looked at, and you're going to get another 400 emails today, and all of a sudden you look at your inbox and it says 7,500 unread messages. It became very cumbersome, very laborious. And what we're now seeing is tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams that you get with Microsoft 365, Chatter from Salesforce, where what they're doing is they're making available to the organization chat rooms that you can have with an individual, with groups of people. And what you find is you can just put a message on, not, oh, hi, how are you today? Hope you had a good weekend, blah, blah, blah. You just put on a message which says, David, have you got that document we talked about on Friday? Because it is just a work thing. It doesn't have to be a personal tool. You can have great chats on there that are personal, and you can have your team, you can have the company, you can make it very informal. But what people are doing now is moving away from email and into one of these tools. So to give you two quick examples of organizations I work with, Ten2Two is a 100% remote organization. Everybody works from home. And Teams is used every day by the minute by the team to work with each other, to organize themselves, to organize things between people. It's become very, very effective. And another organization I work with who uses Slack, the inbox that you have on their email system, if somebody emails you internally, it's massively unusual. So if I email somebody at that organization, I'd be thinking by the end of the day, oh, they haven't come back to me. It's because they're probably not looking at their inbox, because everything is done on Slack messaging. So I can attach a file, I can call or video from there, I can bring other people into a chat or other people into a video. It's become very much a sort of the fulcrum, the office of the organization. And I think we've seen through the last 6 months, as organizations have had to adapt to so much remote working, and will continue in the future, those organizations that have had this type of tool have fared very well. Other organizations have adopted them, but what we will find is in the next year to 18 months, I imagine every organization that uses Office 365 will start to use Teams. So if you're using social media from a personal way, bear in mind that that's going to be introduced into the workplace. So if you don't use things like WhatsApp or one of the tools that are like that, then have a play with it, because you will be doing that in the workplace. Okay, so let's really talk now about how social media can support and enhance your career and your job seeking. As I said, we will focus on LinkedIn in a couple of minutes. And what we've talked about so far is how business has adopted social media, both in talking to its customers, but also how it's adopted social media structures in how it operates as an organization. And for you as individuals, what social media can help you do is a number of things. And importantly, look at number 1 and 2 here, because social media and using LinkedIn, let's talk about LinkedIn, is not necessarily all about establishing new relationships and new connections. It's about maintaining the relationships that you have and that you have in place. There are, personally, I connect with people on LinkedIn whenever I meet them, whenever I have any sort of substantial engagement with them. I connect with them on LinkedIn. I can find out a little bit more about them. I can get a little bit more context very quickly and something about their organization. So it helps to maintain your business relationships. It helps you re-establish relationships with people that you may have worked with before as a colleague or as a supplier or as a customer that you may have lost contact with. And actually, it may be useful to re-establish contact with them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Very easy, very quick, and inexpensive. And then thirdly is then in establishing new relationships and how you can build your business, your contact community over time. But, whereas I always used to, my business contacts directory was in Outlook. But hey, when I left a company, I lost all my contacts because they closed my email down. So what did I do then? So LinkedIn for me is my business address book. If I know somebody, the first place I'll go to is LinkedIn to find them. If I know somebody I'm not connected, I'll go to LinkedIn and connect with them. So it's a really good way of establishing new relationships and have a very efficient way of keeping in touch. We'll talk about that. And then building knowledge effectively and cheaply. And we'll also touch on that. We have had really interesting experiences as Ten2Two in the last couple of months because people have been interviewing on video. What comes through there is you don't establish that face-to-face interaction and that rapport so easily. So people are looking for other things as well as the relationship that comes through video. One of those is, how much do they know about our business? And we had one person who did an interview, massively qualified for this role. Two things, wasn't totally comfortable with video experience. So at the beginning, the person was a little bit hesitant. The main thing was that they hadn't done research on the organization. And as soon as the two people interviewing them realized that they hadn't done the research, they were looking for ways to close it down. The interview is 25 minutes because they just said they have no right now to apply for a job, given all the availability that's out there, and not know as much about us as we do. And so building knowledge around an organization and the sectors you work on efficiently and effectively is very important. So this is all about not just when you're job hunting, this is all about how you maintain your professional presence, how you build your knowledge, and how you maintain a network for when you need it. Job hunting is a time when you say to people, hey, can you give me a reference? Hey, I'm looking for do you know anybody in this area? And you can't do that just when you go, oh, hey, we haven't talked for 20 years, can you help me out? You have to do that with people who are familiar with you and who are proper contacts rather than just long-term acquaintances. So it's an area that I always encourage people to, when they're using things on LinkedIn, is to maintain a presence on LinkedIn, to maintain informal contact. And people at LinkedIn help you to do that. They say, hey, it's somebody's birthday, wish them happy birthday. Hey, it's somebody's work anniversary, wish them a happy anniversary. Or somebody's got a new job, say congratulations. And they do pretty much everything for you, including starting the message. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this. It's all about keeping in front of these people, not every day, not 10 hours a day, but 5 to 10 minutes a day. Check in on LinkedIn, see what's going on, do an update, say hello to somebody, just keep that going. So it's not just when you're job hunting. So as we go through this, you'll realize in the next 20 minutes, we talk about LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I was quite an early user of LinkedIn. I use it at least 15 or 20 times a day in different ways to do research on organizations, on people, to connect with people. I get lots of messages. I've run businesses in the last few years that have been making people redundant. I'm being asked for references and testimonials through LinkedIn every day. I think it's just an absolutely brilliant tool that doesn't cost me anything. It's wonderful. And the point I make about LinkedIn is that it has 23 million members in the UK. There are about 23 million, 25 million professionals in the UK. So that means pretty much all of them are on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn and you don't have a credible presence on LinkedIn, then you are being compared on, when you're being considered for a job interview, when you've got a potential new supplier or a new manager or whatever that might be. They'll go and look at your LinkedIn profile fairly frequently. And if you're not as good as the other LinkedIn profiles they look at, or at least on a par in some way, then it allows them to make a judgment about you. When we put this presentation together in the early stages, I talked to Heather Townsend, who is an arch business networker and author. And I said to her, what would you say to the people that we're talking to? And this is what she said: LinkedIn is the one place you need to be professional online. And importantly, she said, you need to control your personal brand. Don't let the market make assumptions about you. So if you have a LinkedIn profile without a picture, then people make assumptions about what you might look like because they can see other people's pictures. Why hasn't that person put a picture on? What are they afraid of? Why are they worried about privacy? Are they not open? Are they not open? Don't they want people to see them? Why is their career not up to date? What are they hiding? So you have to think about the assumptions people will make about you when you are presenting yourself online, and try and just cover them up. You don't need to have the biggest, best profile in the world. You just need to have something that is on a par with others that are out there. So LinkedIn, people often think about LinkedIn as just being a sort of another place to find a job and when you're job hunting. And in one of the early days, LinkedIn was a bit like that. You know, if you updated your profile, all of your colleagues go, they're looking for jobs. But, you know, hey, that's what people do now. You know, you don't stay at a company for 12 or 14 years anymore. You know, people entering the workplace now expecting they're going to stay at a company maybe for a year or two and move on and have 4 or 5 jobs in their first 8 or 9 years of their career. So LinkedIn, you need to see as LinkedIn as a central place. They can do a couple of things. One is connect with people and use that as your directory and your communication tool. Find people and be found. So importantly, when people, John O'Sullivan, John is one of the most popular Christian names in the world, and O'Sullivan is a hugely popular surname, particularly in the USA and Ireland. So if I put on John O'Sullivan and someone looks for me and it says there are 2.5 million John O'Sullivans on LinkedIn, how can they pick out the one that they want? So is it my picture? Is it my title? Is it where I live? So when people are looking for you, you need to make yourself easily found. Secondly is then powering your career. And that's just not jobs, but it's just looking for potential suppliers. It's looking for references on products and suppliers. It's looking for organizations that you might want to partner with. So using the business profiles and people profiles, you can improve your own personal development and your career and your job performance. And then the final one is just learning and sharing. And it is very much a community now where you can go on and find so much information about an organization, a sector, a development, a technology, whatever that might be. You just need to search and know where to search, and you can pick up the information. And you can ask people, can anybody tell me about this? And you'll get some people coming back to you with some information. So that's where LinkedIn are. So LinkedIn are saying, hey, use it personally, connect and be found, link into your network. Secondly, allow it to support you in your career and your job performance. And thirdly, help you to improve your personal development through learning and sharing. There's essentially 4 things you've got to do on LinkedIn. First of all, you have to build your profile and you have to maintain it, and it has to be accurate. Secondly, you have to build your network of connections of the people that you know, the people that you've known previously, and maintain that network. Thirdly, is that you should build your knowledge and use it as, once again, a free tool to build up your knowledge of your sector, your knowledge of your potential partners, of other people. And then finally, is just engage with the community. Because there are some people, they like to look at a profile of a person to see how active they are. And if they see they're active, they think that's a good thing. I'll just give one personal example here of something that came up a couple of weeks ago, of something that when lockdown happened, and Deborah will remember this, I did something called Formal Friday, and it's #Formal Friday. And every Friday morning, I would put on my my dinner jacket and my bow tie, and I would take a picture of myself sitting on my laptop or having a coffee or working in the garden if it was a sunny day. And I did it over 8 or 9 weeks. And then, everything sort of was starting to get back to normal a little bit. And I sort of stopped it there and then. And the great thing was that I got lots of people that I know coming through and saying, John, that looks really funny. Hey, I'm going to join in next week. So I reconnected with lots of people that I hadn't spoken to for ages. So it was brilliant for that. The other thing was that I was presenting to a board on a project a couple of weeks ago. And as we did the introductions, the chairman said, "Oh, hi, John." He said, "Yes, I've seen you." He said, "Anybody that wears a dinner jacket on a Friday morning is okay with me." So, and he said to the board, he talked about Formal Friday, and it made it a really relaxing meeting. And I'm sure it contributed towards us winning the assignment. So just that little bit of effort on a Friday morning for a few weeks on LinkedIn, it created lots and lots of value for me. So let's just go through those areas. So your profile is essentially your presence on LinkedIn. You present yourself and you present your CV. And as we said, being found is quite important there. So my name, my picture, although somebody did say to me the other day that they think my picture is probably about 12 years old now and I should update it. And so I've agreed to do that. You will see the picture, just the abstract picture behind my photograph. And you can change that and you can put a picture of whatever that might be, the organization you work for, the area you work in, an abstract picture, whatever. The fact that I haven't left that as a default and I've changed it shows that I'm active, and it shows I'm interested in presenting myself in a way that looks attractive, looks engaging, given that this is, we're all looking at high resolution screens and very important. And then there is an about section. So you have your title, you have where you live, and you have to make that as accurate as possible, whether that is, I am the marketing director at X, whether I am a marketing director that helps customers buy the best products. You make it more generic, as you see there, that I have a more generic one, which has become more popular recently. Or even if you're having a career break, put there, I'm a marketing professional on a career break. You put marketing and professional on a career break. So people look at that and say, hey, that is Sue Smith, and oh, marketing. Yeah, that is the Sue Smith I know, because she's put stuff down as marketing. So think about your picture, think about your name, think about your title, and location is then also useful. And then you have an opportunity to put something about yourself and put your profile on. And that's a good thing. We always talk in CVs about putting a little personal pen picture at the top. It allows you to just talk about yourself a little bit more, make it a little bit more personal, show a little bit more of your personality, and that allows you to do that. Often people just put, my skills are bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And if that's what you do, you're a contractor, then that's fine. But actually, if you want people to know a little bit more about you, you want to be a bit more engaging, just think about what you put into that profile, remembering that when it comes on the screen, about only shows the first couple of lines. So those first 2 lines, a little bit like an old-fashioned 120 character tweet, you should just make a little summary on those first couple of lines and then expand a bit further down. So that's your sort of base. That allows you to say, okay, this is me. You should recognize me from my profile at the top. I'm going to say a little bit about myself just so you can find out. I want you to find out a bit more about me. I want to help you to do that. And then you put your CV. And what we'd always recommend is that you put your last 3 roles. If you're on a career break right now, don't be hesitant to say you're on a career break and that you may be returning to work in September 2020 or whatever that might be, or I'm looking for my next role. But don't be afraid of putting that down as a current activity, as a current role. And if you do anything like volunteering work, there is a volunteering section on your profile. You can add that. There's nothing to stop you in saying, I'm on a career break, that's my current job. I also am the treasurer of our local kids group, or I work in the community, or I volunteer on this, because it shows that you are active. So, and then put down your other roles in there. The key thing to do is to make sure that that's synced up with your CV if you are going to be job hunting. Because the dates you have in there, the titles, if your CV looks different to your LinkedIn profile, and trust me that the majority of people looking at CVs, when they get towards a shortlist, will check out your LinkedIn profile. And if they're different, it allows them to make an assumption about you again. So control that, make sure that they are together. And if you do this right, then you can just print out your CV or you can create a PDF from your LinkedIn profile, and it will give your summary and it will give your experiences, and you don't have to write it. So if anyone out there on the webinar right now is thinking, I've got to write my CV because I'm going back to work in the autumn, get your LinkedIn profile up to date and just create a PDF from it. It looks okay. It does what it says on the tin. It's a great starting point. So that's all about get your personal profile done. Without that, if you're making connections with people, they're going to come and look at you. And if that isn't up to scratch, then it could cause an issue. It won't always, but it could cause an issue. I'm just really being thorough here. The secondly then is about building your network of connections and people that you know, that you have met previously, or you met even last week, or have relevance to you. So I generally only connect with people that are in that group that I know and that I've met. I don't do any speculative connections, unless maybe it's somebody that I've heard talk at a conference. And I'll go to them and I'll say, hey, that was a really brilliant presentation today. I'd love to follow you and follow your updates on LinkedIn. I hope you don't mind connecting with me. And generally people who talk at conferences want a good network, and that's why they're doing it. So they generally always accept your connection, but try and make your network as close to you as possible. And whether that's 1,000 people or 200 people or 100 people, make it as relevant, because when you go onto LinkedIn and you have a look, it'll be these people's posts you'll see. So if it's anybody that you don't know, you're not necessarily interested in what they're doing every day, and it makes your LinkedIn page a little bit, less relevant to you as a professional. A couple of things I would say is, and I think that might be my next slide, is that when you are inviting people, LinkedIn says, do you just want to send the invitation or just want to add a personal message? And what they now say is people might be more receptive to you. And Catherine Robinson, this was in 2012, she posted something on Twitter, which said, she's an HR director. She said, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Really? Or I'd like a bit more information than that, make an effort. And that is all about, people seeing that you want to connect with them. And if people say, unless I know them well, and I've just met them, so that's my two rules. If I know them well and they connect with me but don't put a message, I'm fine with that. If I've just met them and they connect with me literally within minutes, I'll accept that. But anything else, if someone doesn't make an effort to put a couple of line message, to say, hey John, we haven't spoken for 3 years, really interesting to see now that you're doing this, or loved your post the other day, thought I'd connect, I'll always accept their connection. So it's a really nice way of, if you have a connection with somebody, I always call it making the connection thicker. So the link between you and a person can be a very thin line. The more you can do to make that thicker, the better the relationship is going to be. And at an early stage, just saying, oh, hey, why don't we connect? Is really simple. It only has to be 2 or 3 lines. You can't do too much on LinkedIn. Whereas if you're going to do that on email, you'd have to go, oh, hi, how are you? And people have to feel they have to email back to you. That's a bit of an effort rather than just go, yeah, I accept. Calling somebody and saying, oh, hi, we haven't spoken for 10 years is a bit weird these days. So LinkedIn is a great way of reestablishing those connections. So build your connections up. I think if you don't have a strong LinkedIn profile, you should be aiming for 100 connections as a minimum. Build that up over time. Think about how you worked with before. Look at your companies that you work with online, and then go and look at their employees that you can do, and just see if those people are there. Just search for some names, do a couple of invitations every day. If you have a bigger network on LinkedIn, then the emphasis then is on maintaining it. The final one is on question we often get is on accepting connections, and accepting connections that will be valuable to you is very important. So I get 8 or 9 connections a day from people that I don't know and I've never heard of. And if I think their role and their company is relevant to me, I might accept that. But generally, I only accept connections from people I know. So I think, well, hey, that, you know, that guy who's just invited me and hasn't put a message, and I don't know, he may have gone and connected with 7,000 people in the last 3 weeks. So why would I accept his connection? So accept those connections that would be valuable to you and that you recognize, is my advice. Hey, if you want a large connection on LinkedIn because you want to put messages out to a huge community, then accept them all. It really depends on your purpose and what you're working. But for me, my LinkedIn network is quite important to me. So I try and make it as personal as possible. Okay, I'm rushing through this a little bit. So as I say, you know, you will see the slides, and it will be recorded if you need to go back. I just put one example here, is that when you've made a connection, use messaging to stay in contact with those people. So say the great thing is LinkedIn is always asking you to get involved. They want you to use LinkedIn. So they're trying to help you any way they can, and giving you on your updates information about people who've got new jobs, their anniversaries, their birthdays, wish to say congratulations. And I do a couple of them every day, and you generally get response back from people saying, hey, that's really nice. And isn't it nice? You know, if you change your job or you've got an anniversary and you get 5 or 6 messages in the morning saying, hey, congratulations, you know, oh, great to see you're still there after 4 years. You know, it's nice that people contact you. I love it. You know, I love it. I just think that people are still interested in what I'm doing. So the example I put up there is a real life example. And it was a person called Rosamund Southgate, who was a medical director at MSF, Medicine Sans Frontier. And she gave a talk about when she was in West Africa, Ebola, and in Syria, helping people in need. And I followed her on stage to give a talk. And I just couldn't follow her. You know, it was like my topic was so stale compared to what she'd been saying. And I just connected with her and said, hey, Rosamund, it was, you know, great to talk to you. And, you know, it was really inspiring. And then she came back and said, great, hey, you put some research up. Could I see that research? And, you know, we did some work together about 1.5 years after that. You know, I did some work with Medicine Sans Frontier, and she helped me make some connections in there at that time. So it was just that, hey, how are you? You know, I wasn't going back cold. I was just keeping up that regular connection. It's just how you would do that if it was somebody in an office. You know, if you work for a big company, you have to maintain a network in the company to get things done. It's exactly the same on LinkedIn. And then, as I said earlier, you know, keep an eye on your homepage on LinkedIn, and you'll see people making comments and putting on announcements, and liking them is just the basic thing. If you say, hey, that's good, just press like as you would do on other social media. And a lot of people go and say, hey, who's liked my post? And they'll see your name pop up, and that thickens that connection again, just temporarily. Or put a comment. You know, if it's an organization you're interested in, put an informed comment. Hey, I find this really interesting. That's great research, but I found that in my career or when I've worked in this sector, this has been interesting. You know, show your expertise, show your knowledge, show your involvement in the sector. Using LinkedIn to go and find out about organisations and sectors and areas of interest has grown up significantly in the last 4 or 5 years. And if you are looking at moving back into a sector after career break, you may be looking at changing the sector that you work in, or even looking at a new organisation, then LinkedIn's a really good way of finding out information about them. You can do that in a couple of ways. Go and look at organisations, companies on LinkedIn, search for the company, and it'll come up in the search, and then you can follow it. So that whenever they do an update, you can look at their profile anyway, but their updates will come into your feed, and you can go back and look at them. You can say, who do I follow? And you can look at that organisation, keep up to date with them. There are LinkedIn groups that allow you to join a special interest group, and there are often discussions and debates on there that you can go in. You can ask a question. Hey, I'm looking for a new HR information system. Could anybody recommend one to me? And you'll find people will come back to you. So it's a great starting point if you're thinking about, I need to go and buy something or procure a service. So take a look at LinkedIn groups, join a couple if you're not already on some groups, follow a couple of organizations. And what's becoming more popular now is following people. So you can go and look at Bill Gates, you can look at any inspiring speaker, and you can follow them and actually read their updates and their articles that they're putting on. So really interesting way of doing it. LinkedIn, great repository for information. Let's say we at Ten2Two, we put on jobs. We use it as a job board as well as an update. We've found more recently that companies are putting more updates on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter than they are on their web pages. So quite often you'll find you go to their press release of the web page, you might find two or three things from this year. You think, hey, they're not doing much. Switch into LinkedIn, and it's really busy. You know, you can just see what they're up to. So if you go through and you think your knowledge is based on a company's web page, you know, that's inadequate. You have to go into their other social media feeds and fill in the picture. Just quick time checking. We've got another 5 or 6 minutes. I put just an example here of a chat that happened within a group. So it was in a special interest group, and you'll see there that this is public domain, so they wouldn't mind I put this in this presentation. But Katie Wilde put something on which says, we're looking for some HR support. Anybody got any ideas? And then through the chat that then happened, literally within 4 or 5 hours of that going on, is that a couple of people said, hey, I do this, why don't we have a chat? There was a couple of recommendations. A few people then came through and said, hey, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4 down, we work with John Phillips and we would recommend him. And John Phillips had put something on saying, hey, I'd like to talk to you. And then you got recommendations. So if you were Katie Wilde, you think, hey, I think I'll talk to John Phillips as my starting point. And then Jill Rouse at the bottom, who's a good friend of Ten2Two's, she put something on saying, hi, Katie, I see Nikki has made contact with you. Talk to Nikki. So without having to look at anything online, one quick question on a group that this person participates in, and she had 2 good recommendations. A time-saving, really effective way of doing it. Just for some of you out there that might be a little bit concerned about privacy and what you're showing on LinkedIn, the only thing I'd say is that LinkedIn now has a really good settings section where you can edit your profile, edit your visibility. They make it very easy for you to sort of help out. And then you can also manage your privacy. So what do people see about you? Do you want everybody to see everything? Do you just want your contacts to see everything and other people to see some things? You can hide your job title. You can really tailor it to the requirements that you have. So one thing you can do is if you're, I think default these days is if you're on LinkedIn and you change your profile, unless you want people to know you've changed your profile, i.e. I've got a new job, then it won't put an update on. But you could go to settings and say, tell people when I change my profile, then make the change. So just take a look at that settings area on LinkedIn, and you can just manage how you're seen to your contacts and to your and to the wider world on LinkedIn. Okay, I'm just going to summarize very quickly the sort of LinkedIn session that we just had. There are still lots of people out there on LinkedIn that don't have a photo, and I would have a photo on there. Make it professional, you know, sitting on a deck chair on the beach in Ibiza with a cocktail in your hand might not be that relevant, but if it's notable, you know, if you are a mountain climber and you want to put on a picture of you up a mountain, that might be good enough, but make it recognizable. Put your headline on. The F word is key. Being found is key. So make it relevant to you. Make it relevant to people who might be looking for you. Write your summary and ensure it has impact in the first 2 lines. And then have at least 3 to 5 job titles listed. So your current job, if you're working, and the previous 2. There's no harm in having, I mean, some people have their career back to, you know, 1980. But what you can do is you can say, you can put a job listing which says, the first 5 years of my career, I worked in hospitality, I looked in bars while I was a student, blah, blah, blah. So at least, you know, you can say to people, I've been working since I was a student, and then put your more material job, something that might be relevant to what you're doing now. So think about how you might present that. It has skills, you know, you can list your skills. I think maybe list a couple that you're there, and people endorse you for your skills, And then if you put your education in, then LinkedIn like to see a full profile, and they will present you in searches more readily if you have a full profile, because it's looking up all of your keywords. Remember that LinkedIn is looking not just at your headline, but it's looking at keywords. So make sure that if you're in the consumer product sector, you were talking about consumer products. And the education, you don't have to put your whole education, but some reference is good. And as I said earlier, aim for 100 connections. Why 100 connections? Because when somebody's skimming a LinkedIn page, 99 is two figures, 100 is three. So it just makes a slight difference when you're at 100. It looks like you're more involved. I think the more relevant, the better. Many people now have 300 plus. If you get over 500, it only says you've got 500 plus. But you know, your connections are not just there to say, hey, I've got a big network. It's there for you to use. People are looking at you, seeing you as active, seeing that you're posting on LinkedIn, seeing that you're commenting on other people's posts, says, hey, this person is active, they're interested, they're very professional, they have energy, you know, all of these things that people assume about you when you're active on LinkedIn. Not when you're over, there are some people who are over the top on LinkedIn, you think, do they do anything other than go on LinkedIn? But when you do it in a reasonable way, then people can make a positive assumption about you. And that's up to you to decide, do I want that assumption to be positive, or do I want that assumption to be whatever it's going to be? And then finally, from a broader point of view, I just wanted to recap on a couple of things. One is that point that we talked about early on learning by doing. You've got to participate, to understand and learn as you go. I think if you are thinking about your future, whether it is a promotion in your current role, whether it is making sure that you keep your current role right now, if there's going to be redundancy programs, if you're returning to the workplace, make sure that your social media presence, your professional presence, particularly on LinkedIn, is up to scratch. And so set yourself some goals and understand why you are doing what you're doing. It is, okay, I want to have 200 connections by Christmas. Okay, do that. Start thinking about who you're connected with. Think about connecting with the people that you're meeting now. Remember, it's a marathon and not a sprint. You don't have to spend the next 5 days building your LinkedIn connection, going out and researching what organizations are doing on social media. Just do it a little bit at a time. It's a coffee break thing. And then, first of all, finally, you know, my last message to you, you know, you'll have seen from this that I'm a fan of social media. I am, because I've been involved in the internet since 1995. But I think if you are committed to a professional career, then using LinkedIn and being aware of how social media works in this environment is absolutely professional. You cannot be anymore someone that says, oh, hey, I don't do technology, or my son or my daughter shows me how to do this. You can't say that in the work environment anymore. You have to be up to date with how these things work. So it's not going to go away. Social media is changing. You know, there's new platforms coming all the time, but social media is here to stay, and it is now moving into workplace. So don't put it off. Set yourself a plan, and try and meet some objectives by, I would imagine, by the end of the year. Just finally, say it's coffee break. The important point here, be personal. Don't try and be somebody different. And then finally, just decide on the level of privacy. You know, if you are a private person, you're uncomfortable about putting it all out there. You know, I think you can get more out of my dustbin about me and my personal details than you can from my profile. So I don't mind people seeing what I'm doing at any time on the web. So that's it. So I will stop sharing my screen now. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We'll just have a fun wrap up with Deborah, and we'll just recap what on the next steps.
That's brilliant, John. Thanks so much. Whistle stop tour, but some really useful hints and tips there. So thank you for that. We've got a couple of questions which I think we might just have time to answer. One is saying, do you recommend paying for premium or keeping connections to under 500 worthwhile people and saving money on a limited budget?
So there's two answers here. One is you get a month free. So there's no, if you're building your profile, there's no harm in getting premium for a month. and then cancelling your subscription. I believe there's so much free of charge on LinkedIn. I don't believe that you need to pay for premium unless you are actively wanting to do things like messaging, more features on your profile. You want to go out to people that you don't know and you want to send them a message, for example, which you can do on premium. From a personal point of view, I'm still slightly hesitant about people sending me messages via LinkedIn that I don't know. So when they're just sending me a mail, unless it's really relevant to me, I think, hey, why are you contacting me as if you're one of my connections? So I have an issue with that. So for me, I'm not a premium user, subscriber, and I use it all the time. And I do know companies that use LinkedIn all day long for their marketing and are not premium subscribers. So I think.
Sorry, just to interrupt, you don't.
Yeah.
You have over 500 connections, but don't pay. So you can get over 500
Oh,
connections.
absolutely. Yeah, I've got 1,700 connections, and I don't pay for it. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And then another lady has asked about, she's had a career break, but is interested in 2 different areas of work. So she was saying, whereabouts would you explain that in your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah. So I wouldn't hesitate in putting on your headline that you're excited about returning from a career break, and you're looking for opportunities in the healthcare and consumer product sectors. And then in your profile section where you can put about you can just expand on that a little bit more. I've got, I love these 2 sectors. I've got real transferable skills that I could bring to them, and use my skills in the other areas, and then go into your profile itself. So I just think you can put that in your headline, and then you can just expand on it in your about section.
Okay, cool. And then final question I think we've got time for. We'll cover up any more after the event. Somebody's asked, how much information can an employer, if they have premium, see? Can they see from my network the people I follow and the companies, or is that just visible to me?
If you go into your privacy settings, you can set some privacy around that. So your premium doesn't give you access to everybody's total information.
Right.
Yeah. So but the important thing then is to spend a couple of minutes on that privacy section in your settings and just understand what's in them, what isn't. What you don't want to do is to set some privacy when you didn't mean to. So just go through and look at what you can do and what you can't do. As I say, premium at whatever it is, £20 a month, doesn't give you access to everything everywhere. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but just check how you're setting your privacy up. Okay,
brilliant. I think we'll leave the questions there, and we'll follow up afterwards with any we didn't answer. So just to finish up, what should people do next?
What we know is we have online people at various different levels of their experience, but I think with social media and LinkedIn, either understanding more about how it's been used in business, understanding how it might affect you, and understand how you use it through something like LinkedIn, is to have that little plan, a couple of really simple objectives in your mind of, do you know what, I'd like it to do this for me, and this for me, and this for me, and then just try and work out, okay, how could I achieve that? And just set yourself a goal of 2 to 3 months of doing that, and then just see how you get on. Keep trying, keep experimenting. Okay,
that's brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll end the session here. If anyone's got any feedback, then please do email me, deborah@ten2two.org. We're going to run this again, so we can incorporate any feedback you have and improve it for the next one. The recording will be made available. I'll send that out along with any answers to questions we haven't covered. So thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Deborah.
Have a good day.
All right, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.